If everyone could please stand. And Mr. Ben, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the Planning and Zoning Board, local planning agency. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners will make the final decisions on these items. Items H9, H18 are LPA items. Items on today's agenda will be heard by the county commission on July 13th. When a motion ends in any kind of a split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on the record. Speakers for the public comment on agenda items will be given 3 minutes today because we've got a full house here. At this time, if any board member has had an ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, I need a motion for the approval of the P&Z minutes for April 17th, 2023.
So moved.
A motion by Ben, a second by Mr. John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. All right, item H1.
Good afternoon, Board. Item H1 is Mehran Ghaeenzadeh requests a change of zoning classification from BU1 with an existing BDP to BU2 and removal of the existing BDP. The application number is 23Z00007 for tax account number 2800735, located in District 5.
Is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kenneth Ludwa. I represent BSE Consultants. We are the applicant's engineer.
Okay.
Currently, the parcel is zoned BU1, general retail commercial, with a binding development plan for the south 100 feet strip to be a landscape and stormwater buffer. Future land use of community commercial. The applicant proposes to construct a 3-story climate-controlled storage facility. And in order to do that, the BU2 zoning, if approved, would allow the structural height up to 35 feet. Although this will be a storage facility, it will look and feel more like an office park type of building. It will be quiet with low traffic. The proposed plan would keep the building up front, more in character with the commercial development typical of the rest of US 192. And we would like to note that there are several other parcels that are already zoned BU2 within a block in either direction on both sides of US 192. So that's there is precedent for similar zoning in the neighborhood. The other thing we would like to point out is the proposed facility is lower than a billboard, which is located on the parcel right next door. We don't have the exact height on that billboard, but we're estimating that that's about 60 feet high. So there is again precedent for height in the immediate vicinity. As presented, the proposal is to remove the existing BDP, but when we came to present at the last P&Z meeting, there was a mix-up on the authorization to act, and we were not able to present our case. There were several very, very similar cases presented at the last meeting, and when I stepped up, one thing that the board advised was to present a BDP to mitigate the issue with having commercial adjacent to residential. And so we are presenting another BDP actually that would basically replace that buffer with another 100-foot strip, again with a combination of stormwater and landscape, with a 50-foot minimum of that being landscape, to buffer that south strip along those residential parcels. So that would replace that. We emailed a copy of a draft of that BDP to staff last week. I'm not sure if that made it to you yet or not, but that is our proposal. Additionally, at that last meeting, we also had the benefit of talking to one of the neighbors who was concerned about drainage, kind of the sheet flow that comes up against that property from those residential parcels. And we included that in our draft BDP as well to take care of drainage that reaches that parcel, and make sure that reaches a public drainage way, that whatever is sheet flowing on, off of those residential parcels, so that we're not backing up drainage onto those residential parcels. And so we included that in the BDP as well. So that's what we're presenting to take care of those concerns. So that's our proposal. I hope the board will consider.
Okay, 1 second, sir.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chair, sorry, we forgot to include that part of our presentation. So the applicant is correct. He has submitted a BDP, and it was, we got it last week, and it was not sent out with the original packet. It was sent out in the subsequent email to you all, so you probably have it. So the main difference between the existing BDP and the new BDP is removal of the second condition, and that second condition read, the developer owner shall exclude adult entertainment development and rentals or any other offensive operation. That's the request that is being removed from the BDP. The language about the landscape buffer to the south is still included and is in the same format as what is existing.
Okay.
We can include that if needed. We didn't feel that necessary because I think I believe that is included in that zoning anyway, but if necessary, we'd be happy to add that back in as well. So
Adult entertainment is allowed in that zoning district. However, there's locational criteria that probably prohibits that. But that's up to the flavor of the board.
All right, hold on 1 second, sir. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? We have a couple people would like to talk. Before you step away though, sir, hold on 1 second, ma'am. Anyone at the board got any questions for the applicant? All right.
Mr. Chair and board members, I'm Christy Fisher. I'm the planning director for the city of West Melbourne. And my interest is really more in finding out what's going on with the utilities and whether they have a need to connect to city sewer.
All right.
So I'm not really in favor or against it, but I think we should know if there's going to be long-term sort of decision to connect to sewer.
Okay. Sir, and when you come up, if you would state your name and address for the record. I let Mrs. Fisher get away without her address, but we know City of West Melbourne, so. Name and address, sir.
In 3850 Miami Avenue, West Melbourne, Florida.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, that's going to be pretty much in my backyard. It borders my property, and, if they're saying they're going to run a canal
Sir,
back
if you
there,
could get as close as you could to the microphone.
yeah, if they're going to run a canal, straight across to both canals, fantastic. That'll stop the water intrusion. Both the pieces of property, mine as well as theirs, kind of go into a V, forms in the middle of my backyard, so that would be a big help. So with that vegetation gone, potential flooding would be much worse than what it already is. So,
Okay.
and also, as far as the barrier goes, the natural vegetation is okay. Prefer to have a concrete wall or concrete block wall put up. I noticed, like when they did Lowe's, that wooden fence lasted maybe 6 years. That was the extent of it. And That's about it. Oh, and also the height of the building. So, 3 stories will bring it above the tree line. Really don't want to be looking at anything above the tree line. If they can go 2 stories, that would be tremendous.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak for or against this item? All right, sir, if you could come back up to the podium.
I believe we would be connecting to city sewer. It would be, I believe, a very minor amount of discharge. We would be talking about basically a small office, so the flows would be minimal. I believe as far as the drainage, the BDP addresses that, and I believe the gentleman was the.
Oh, that'll be all handled in permitting.
Yeah,
there.
the person.
We're planning and zoning.
Yeah, so and actually, I think we would also, I believe we would want to have a wall or a fence as well anyway, just for security, so.
All right, hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for the applicant? Yes, sir, Mr. Ron.
Mr. Chairman, for the applicant, in your BDP, would you also be willing to stipulate that the only BU2 use you will have will be for the minimum warehouse, the warehouses? The reason I ask is there's some other uses in BU2 that I don't think would be appropriate for this area. And,
Yes, we would.
okay, very good.
The main issue is the height, correct? From the BU1 to the BU2?
Correct, that is the reason we are.
That's what you're after?
Yes, yeah.
All right, anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, then I move that we recommend approval of this with the BDP, with removing the old BDP and replacing with the new BDP.
Second.
All right.
With the addition of B1 uses and with any storage only.
Yes, yes. All BU1 uses, no problem. Just the BU2 uses, there's want to restrict.
Okay, we got a motion by Ron, we got a second by Lorraine. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item H2, please.
Item H2, Samir and Ilham Itani Revocable Living Trust requests a change of zoning classification from AU to EU2. The application number is 23Z00031 for tax account number 2101052 located in District 1.
And have we heard back from, is the applicant here?
If you'd like to continue it, Mr. Chair, to give them more time, or if you'd like to just handle it in the regular course of business, is up to you.
The applicant withdrew.
The applicant withdrew his party to the application, but we were waiting for confirmation from the owner whether he wanted to move forward or not. We have not heard anything. We were hoping that he would attend so we could proceed with the proceedings.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether we want to table it till next time or flush it, I don't know.
I need a motion.
Move to table.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by John, a second by Ben to table item H2. All those in favor?
Mr. Chair, can we have a date specific so we don't have to advertise? So here, let me give you the date. July 15th is the next P&Z meeting.
We're all here about that.
You can come back.
You want to move it to the next date?
Yeah.
Motion, so amended
Move to the next meeting.
Okay. So, please, thank you. We understand we've got a bunch of concerns in here today, but John said to table it to the next meeting.
It looked like there
To
was a
that
first
date.
and a second, so you have a motion on the table. that
I'm
you
sorry?
need to. There's a motion on the table that you need to vote on.
It'll be in the next
But he
meeting
said
is
we
July
needed to be date
17th.
Specific, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it's
Okay.
July 17th.
John, could you amend your motion?
I'll amend it to have it on July 17th, which will be the next meeting.
And the second stays.
Okay, we have a motion by John, a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. We apologize for any inconvenience, but that's where we're at. Item H3.
Where are we at? Come back.
You'd have to come back on the 17th, ma'am.
Mr. Chair,
Same time.
if I can, Paul, can you, if you guys want to meet outside with one of my staff, Paul can explain the process and what the request is for and try to answer some of your questions. So the next time around, you'll be more informed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Meet him outside. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
I understand their frustrations, though.
Yeah, do you
Ms.
think that
Jane is
they,
item H3U.
Item H3, Terrence A. Cronin Jr. and Kathleen M. Hubbard requests a CUP for wireless telecommunication facilities and broadcast tower in a GU zoning classification. The application number is 23Z00015 for tax account number 2324077, located in District 1.
And is the applicant here? If you could state your name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Afternoon, Mary Solik, 121 South Orange Avenue, Suite 1500, Orlando, Florida. I am legal counsel for Gulfstream Towers, the applicant on this particular project. This is a proposed 199-foot telecommunications tower on a 29.17-acre tract. I've been doing cell tower work since 1996. I wish I had $1 for every time somebody told me, go put this out somewhere where it won't bother anybody. This tower is kind of out somewhere where it won't bother anybody, but it will provide needed coverage in the area. Your staff has done a very thorough job of analyzing the application. We meet all of the criteria under your administrative policies, and your CUP and your outside counsel or outside consultant has reviewed it as well. Do you have any questions for me, or do I need to outline any more details for you?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Hold on one second, ma'am. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? That is a very good sign.
That is, usually I'm the one packing the house, so.
All right, seeing
Mr.
that, I
Chairman.
bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I noticed on the graphic, you're showing an access into that site. How are you getting to the access road to
The-
that site?
The access is coming off 407, and it's coming through 2 additional tracks that are owned by the same property owner as the tower location. And we will do a stabilized access road. I think the access is already sort of improved, and it's the access the property owners are using.
It doesn't show it on the aerial or on the site plan.
I have a,
All I see is trees.
does the Elmo work?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the top. So it goes like this? Okay, probably can't hear me. The access comes off of, this is the tower track down here. This parcel and this parcel are also owned by the same property owner, and the access is coming off of 407 here, like this. And I think it's following a already dirt trail on the property.
Okay, I just couldn't see that from the aerial, that there was a trail in there. Okay. Second question, where are they getting power to run this thing?
From whatever power provider is servicing that area, we'll have
But
to
there's
bring
no
power,
ut-
we'll
there's
have
no
to bring power
utilities.
in.
You're
We
gonna-
don't need it, we don't need water or sewer, we just need power.
I know.
But
I'm wondering where the electric's coming from, because it says here you may do a backup generator, okay? But it doesn't, and you're asking for 200 amp service. And I was just curious, because there's no electric in that area.
we will bring it in.
You'll have the
At-
FP&L bring it in
Yes.
for you? Okay. Has anybody had any discussions with FDOT to see if there's ever going to be a link going north from 528 to 407, what is that, 407?
Let me answer that, not while we're all still alive.
Are you older than me?
I don't know, there's nobody out there.
Okay, I'm just curious, because it would, kind of,
That is out in the middle of nowhere.
it is. in
Plus,
the
it's
middle.
limited access. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Well, 528 is, and yeah, that would be
Well,
limited
so's
access too.
407.
Yes, they would be limited access.
I mean, there's
No, we
people
have not- we
sneaking
have
in
not-
and out, but.
Yeah, it's okay, guys. I'd like to ask questions. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in the staff comments, for the applicant, in the staff comments, there were some additional restrictions that were recommended we ought to take a look at. For example, provide final construction documents and site plans for review.
Are you talking about the conditions of approval that were provided to you by the outside consultant, Cityscapes?
One of the things I was wondering about was, the third one was they provide a structural analysis that was signed and sealed by a registered engineer.
We do that at BP stage, and we
Okay.
do it.
For staff, is that, when, what she said, is that like site planning?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there a need for us to really put these kind of additional conditions on the CUP? Since if they're really being addressed at site planning?
These recommendations are for you all to consider. It's not necessarily for this board. It is part of the, it was part of this, these conditions were part of our consultant's review. So what I would tell you is that the first proposed condition, the final construction documents, that's all part of the review process. NEPA and SHPO approvals with the new structure, that's all part of the building permit process, as well as the structural analysis. But I would tell you that the last bullet point with all feed lines shall be installed within the support structure, and a tenant porch shall be sealed in a manner to prevent access to birds and wildlife. That is a condition that you may want to consider as part of the CUP process.
Okay, so for the applicant, that last one about sealing it from birds and wildlife, it would seem to me that that's something that you would almost do automatically.
We are amenable to all four of these conditions.
Okay. So, can we go ahead
Chairman.
and put that fourth condition then in as part of the condition of the CUP?
You can, I mean, that's part of,
Or
you
will,
can.
or will the county commission take care of that?
You can. You're just a recommend body to the Board of County Commissioners, so it's up to you all to determine whether that condition needs to move forward, or the application needs to move forward with that condition.
Well, I think that last one makes sense. Just I don't see why the applicant wouldn't do that automatically, but I think we ought to go ahead and put it in anyway. There's no sense in spending all this money and having a raccoon go up and eat all the wiring. That would be a real disaster.
The ports will all be above 160 or 170. If the raccoon can get up there, kudos to the raccoon.
I have 75 feet trees in my yard, and the raccoons go to the top.
Do they?
So I don't have any doubt that they will be able to get up there, especially if they think there might be something worth eating. Go ahead. Thank you.
You know, Ron, this is probably the last location of a cell tower that isn't surrounded by homes. So the criteria that the staff created, it was designed when there's homes around there, but the deer are probably going to be the only unhappy people out there. You know, it's just, they're out in the middle of nowhere.
Right, I agree.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm excited they got that tower. When you come back from Orlando, you're glad that tower is there. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you.
Don't put too much on them, because the tower people do extremely well on the construction elements of that, that's for sure. So, that's all I got to say.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Robert.
I'd like a motion to approve.
And I'm gonna second it.
We have a motion by Robert, a second by Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item H4, Legacy West Melbourne LLC requests a change of zoning classification from AU to RU215. The property is 2.76 acres located on the west side of John Rodes Boulevard, approximately 600 feet south of Fortune Place. The application number is 23Z00025 for tax account number 2704610, located in District 5.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a statement to make. I just want to bring it to the board's attention that my company, Wellbro Building Corporation, we build many different things, and we have had talks throughout the last few months with Legacy West. We have no signed deals, no signed anything, but I wanted to ask staff if this is something they feel that I need to recuse myself on for the vote.
As long as you don't have any remuneration involved, I believe you're allowed to vote.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, and thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. If you could state your name and address for the record and who you are.
Yes, hi. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the P&Z, Bruce Moia with MBB Engineering representing the applicant. I'll probably be a little more long-winded on this item than I normally are on some of the other ones. This one's a little complicated. It's got a lot of moving parts, and there is a representative from the city of West Melbourne, so I want to make sure that I cover all the bases and get my facts right. So, and also we have the developers in the room. They are here as well. So anyway, so this is a piece of property that's it's actually in the county. It's kind of in one of those areas where, you know, you have city and county where you have kind of like a little salt and pepper in there going on, where you got a few straggly pieces. And kind of a little backstory on this property was that we started working for Legacy back in over 2 years ago, working on this project, which is the parcel adjacent to this to the west. It's zoned for 15 units to the acre. We did the design. We went to the City Council of West Melbourne, because that one is in West Melbourne, and requested approval. About halfway through the design process, after we'd already submitted everything, Legacy acquired this property. And so at the time, there was no plan to do anything with it because we thought the project was very viable. We thought we had no issues, and the city was like, well, you know, we don't know what you're going to do with this piece. It's not in the city. Are you going to annex it? You're not going to annex it. Are you going to include it? You're going to not include it? We're like, we don't plan on doing anything with it at the time. We'll just use it as an amenity for the development. Well, after going through the site plan review process and finding out that we needed to do some massive utility improvements and roadway improvements, when we finally got the cost of this project, we couldn't do it. So the plan now is to include this property into the multifamily residential development to make it feasible, because right now it's just not. So we've actually withdrawn our entire submittal to the City of West Melbourne. There is one last little piece that was actually recorded, and we're asking that to be unrecorded. So we're going to wipe the slate clean. We want to come back here for the rezoning of the property to be consistent with the property to the west, which is already zoned for 15 units to the acre, make this 15 units to the acre, and then we're going to go back to the drawing board and do whatever we have to do to make this project viable. I know you're familiar with John Rodes Boulevard. We have to put in turn lanes, and there is not a lot of room. Not a lot of room at all. So we're actually proposing to dedicate, I think it was 35 feet of our property to the right-of-way to the county for these roadway improvements, put in turn lanes, drainage improvements, utilities, the whole 9 yards, at a cost solely to the developer, not even getting impact fee credits when we believe we didn't even trip the threshold. So that's the story for another day. But so we're really here to ask your permission or ask for your approval to get this rezoned so we can actually have a project at this location. So that's about all I have for you right now. I'm sure you're going to have a few questions. Just for John's benefit, you know, if you saw your school concurrency, that we have no issue with school concurrency. We are at the threshold of a traffic concurrency. That's why the improvements were being requested. We are at, and I'm sure you're familiar with West Melbourne Utilities, planning to have their own water system. So there was a lot of water extensions and connections that we were proposing to help them with that. So we're hoping that we can get this rezoned so we can come back with a project. So any questions, I'm here to, happy to entertain anything you have to ask.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bruce, is that the old strawberry place that you?
The old
picked?
strawberry farm, yes, sir.
Okay, that's my driveway right across the street
Okay.
for my business. So, I mean, that's a good idea. I mean, it's consistent with what's south of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a
So-
lot of multifamily in the area already.
Any other questions for the applicant while he's here?
Bruce, in the West Melbourne, when you use their water, they don't require you to come within the
Yeah,
within the city?
well, yeah, so we didn't propose to annex this property yet at the time, because we didn't need it. So we got all approvals without it, and so we were connecting to water and sewer. We got to go, we got to go pretty far south to get to water and sewer. So we were proposing to build all those extensions, and being in the city of West Melbourne, that was fine. We're using their utilities, we're in their jurisdiction. So this was this is still in the county, so we're asking to get that included at the proper zoning.
All right, while you're standing there, Mr. Bruce, does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay, Mrs. Christie, if you could come up.
For the record, Christy Fisher, Planning Director, 2240 Minton Road, City of West Melbourne. As Bruce had mentioned, this property had, no entitlements other than, like you said, the strawberry farm, but the property behind it did. It had the zoning entitlement. They were going to build 199 units. They had said that they wanted to keep it at that threshold in part so that they only had one driveway. Because the county, unless I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think your staff told me that if you have more than 200 units, they need to have two access. And I'm not quite sure where they're going to get the other access. So the one access was going to be at the south end, and they were going to do the improvements. I think Mr. Moia minimized some of the traffic safety proponent of that because there was some traffic safety concerns. As you all, probably for those who know John Rodes, are aware of. And yes, absolutely, the city has a code that says that if there's going to be a connection to our water and sewer, you either do a pre-annexation agreement, or if you're next to the city, you annex in. The part that bothers us is that, we have a city council that believes there's probably enough property as it is that's vacant that can serve for multifamily. And they withdrew, and it was that I found out that on this front part, they wanted to get the entitlements through you all with the rezoning to be able to put additional units on. Didn't know that the project wasn't financially feasible until I heard about it from Mr. Moia. But it just feels a little underhanded that they, first weren't going to have any entitlement, and it was just going to be what it was, and then now they're going to add 50, 60 units, whatever it is, and then come back to the city and pretty much say, well, look, city, you have to take us in the way that you are. So that's the part that bothers the city. So we're always happy to annex and have more revenue, but on the other hand, we have things, just like you all, in the comprehensive plan, long-term vision that we want or don't want. And so this doesn't really play into that as well as it should. Thank you.
Okay.
But basically, they wanted us to handle it, planning, zoning.
They want you all to give them the density.
Yeah,
so
they
that
want us to be the culprit.
Right, they want you all to be the culprit.
We've been there before, we know.
Any other questions, or anyone else would like to speak for or against this item? Okay. Mr. Bruce, if you could come back up.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple things. Obviously, there's nothing underhanded here at all. We're a victim of circumstances. I mean, the reality of what's happening with development, with construction costs, material costs, interest rates, insurance, all that. You run the numbers, You know, we ran the numbers in 2021, it worked. We ran the numbers again in 2023, it didn't work. So we got no project. So we have to do something. So we're not trying, we had all intentions of doing exactly what we proposed. But, you know, for circumstances beyond our control, it's just not realistic. And second, when we proposed this thing at the beginning, we only had one means of access. And really, egress is really the most important. It's not, who cares if you can't get in, you got to be able to get out when you have so many units because of emergency situations. Now we own the entire frontage on John Rodes. We can have a second access. So we would like to, add a couple more units to make the project viable. More than likely, we're not going to go all the way to the extreme. We don't need every unit we could possibly get out of the project. We didn't even get all the units that we were entitled to, because we went through, we were entitled to have 15 units per acre. We didn't have that to begin with. We didn't propose that, mostly because we only had one access, but still, it was a challenge getting it approved through the city of West Melbourne, to be honest with you. And we were already entitled to have 15 units per acre. So I don't think it's any secret that West Melbourne's not excited about multifamily development, but even when you're entitled on the property, it's still not a guarantee you're going to get approved. So it was a challenge, and we gave them pretty much everything they asked for. And I think we were a little over generous at first by giving them that piece of property as just a park or whatever it was going to be, an amenity. So now we kind of have to renege on that agreement and saying that we're going to do that, but it's not because we want to, it's because we have to.
Now, does Legacy Group own the property to the west?
And the east, they own both properties now, yes.
And you front John Rodes?
Yes, we do now, yes.
Where does Dyke Road hit you coming in from the rear?
It doesn't.
It doesn't come all the way to there?
There's a canal right away between us.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure there's an easement for Dyke Road to continue on.
Maybe.
There may be an easement.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But if we're doing all those roadway improvements, we can use the second means of egress. We can add that now that we have the full frontage. But there was an old recorded easement of record that allowed that property to go through the strawberry farm, and that was our means of access. But now we can have it anywhere. You're going to have multiple accesses.
Isn't there multifamily just south of there?
South is that big, large
That Sheridan
subdivision.
Woods.
It's a
And then just beside
It's like
that,
across the street, there's the multifamily development.
Greenwood
to the
Village,
south,
Greenwood
yeah.
Manor,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, if you look at an area, you'll see a lot of multifamily in that area. Not all of it fronts John Rodes, but in that area, there's a lot of multifamily.
Well, hearing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
I thought he said the schools were fine.
The schools are good.
I'm just
Schools-
messing with
And we're
you.
going
happy
to get
with
power
it.
from FP&L, they're right in front.
That's right. In your heart of hearts, what would be the best way that you would handle it that would satisfy West Melbourne?
Well,
'Cause
we're
they
going
seem
to, yeah, I
like
mean,
they
we're
do-
going back to West Melbourne. We have to start over. So there's not going to be any surprises. You're not going to give us anything that they're not going to see and comment on when we go back to city council.
And ingress and
We're just
egress.
asking for zoning. That's all we're asking for. We're going to have to develop a whole other plan. We're going to go back and meet with Christie's staff and go over the plan and spend another, I
Fee.
don't know how much time
More
and how much
fees.
money, but that's what we're going to do.
What about annexation?
That'll probably eventually have to happen, yeah.
So, can I finish? All right. So why don't you just pursue annexation now?
Well, it's in the county right now, so we want to
Right.
get the zoning in the county first, and then we'll go back to the city and annex. If we even decide to do that, we might make it a separate project, who knows? We have options, so we're going to explore our options. I don't say that's what we're going to do, but more than likely, the most likely path is to go back to City of West Melbourne with the annexation.
Okay. Why can't you do that first? I don't understand. Why do you need us to change the zoning on it when you can have it annexed and then have the zoning done there?
That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for
No, I
zoning
know,
now
I know. I'm just asking why you're not considering that
because it's in the county.
until it's annexed. Doesn't make sense.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Bruce. Would you explore a BDP with the city of Melbourne?
You mean with
West
City of
Melbourne.
West Melbourne?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, we'll abide by whatever their city council says. I mean, it'll be,
But for
whatever
us,
we
because we're
present
in
to
the,
them is what we'll have to build. They don't do BDPs. They look at the plan and they approve the plan as is. You can't deviate from the plan. So your binding development plan is your site plan. Because once you say this is what we're doing, you're bound to that.
well, I understand that, but we're in the county now.
Understand?
And these are your words, we're in the county. So if you come to us with an agreement with the city, makes it a whole lot easier for us.
Well, they don't do BDPs. A BDP would have to be for the county. If you want to approve it, if you want me to give you a BDP for you to approve with the zoning request, I don't know what we would add to it. But, you know, everything, we're not going to do anything without the city of West Melbourne's approval. Like I say, we withdrew everything, so we have to start completely over with the city of West Melbourne.
Mr. Chair, this is something that I think it's fitting for the area, and it's something that I can support, so I'm not sure if you're ready for a motion or if you want to let the board continue, but, you know, I'm ready.
We got any other questions?
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Chair, I recommend approval, or move to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Ben, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Robert?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, item H5.
Item H5 is Mina Street LLC, requests a change of zoning classification from RU113 to RU210. The property is 0.21 acres located on the north side of South Court, approximately 600 feet west of North Highway A1A. The application number is 23Z00026 for tax account number 2716147, located in District 5. Thank you.
And I assume you're the applicant?
Correct. I'm Nathan Meloon. I represent the applicant. This is the principal of Mina Street LLC, Nash Cole.
And your address, please, sir, for the record?
1990 West New Haven Avenue, Melbourne, Florida, 32904.
All right.
And I have a brief presentation. So first, all we're trying to do with this property is make it compliant with what the property actually is. This property is and has been a duplex. A public records request revealed in 1963 variance application number 60 that demonstrates that this property was built as a duplex and has been a duplex for almost 60 years. And this is further corroborated by a tax application to the Brevard County Property Appraiser's Office, where if you notice on the drawing on the right side of the presentation, there's a portion that has H in certain rooms and R in certain rooms. And that's because, as is stated on the application, it's a duplex, and it has been, again, since 1963 when it was built. A mass rezoning in 1973 of the area changed all of the land in this area to single family, and that was Ordinance 7313. The current zoning, I had a typo on the title here, it disallows a duplex. It only allows a single family residential attached dwelling. So we're just trying to make it make the property with what it always has been compliant with the zoning code. Our proposed zoning does allow, as the second use under permitted use, a duplex, which is what we're trying to just come into compliance with what it is. This is consistent as shown on the staff report, and it's clearly compatible because it's existed there for 60 years. And I do want to point out that there is other multifamily zoning west of A1A. There's the Florida Garden condos directly on South Court on the south side, and also block south, there's an additional condominium that has more multifamily zoning. So there is multifamily zoning to the west of A1A in the area. And there's no redevelopment here. The property is staying the same. There was a lot of concern about Airbnbs in the public comment. Here I have what was a 6-month lease that ended recently, and after I submitted this morning this presentation, I have the current lease. If I would be able to provide that to the board, if you're amenable to that. I have a copy for the court order.
Thank you.
May have not printed out enough, or may have handed out more. I apologize. So as stated, we're asking the board to approve the rezoning to allow the duplex use that has always existed in the property, and we're happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Does the applicant live on the other side of the duplex?
The applicant does not currently live on the other side of the duplex.
So is there a lease for both of them, or is there one that's vacant?
No, they're both actually occupied right now. The lease that is not, that just
Sir,
went up.
I'm going to have to interrupt you. If you could give your name and address too, for the record, please, sir.
Yeah, my name is Nash Cole, and the address is 8430 Illinois Ave, West Melbourne. No, but the lease that is current, that it just went up, is still going. We're just doing month to month at that point because he's moving next week or two, and then we're going to have a new tenant moving in there.
So if I'm correct, I know there's a lot of concern about Airbnb, but by even changing this to be, able to have the duplex, you're still not allowed to Airbnb here, correct?
I'm not doing this for Airbnb. I'm just trying to be compliant with what the property is.
What's the county minimum? Is it 30 days or is it 60 days? What's the county minimum on rentals? Is it?
The only, to my knowledge, the only rental requirements that we have is for a short-term rental. It has to be greater than 90 days.
So 3 months. Okay.
Also, on my last PowerPoint slide, it's for 29 South Court. The one that I just handed out is for 31 South Court. So those are both currently occupied.
Okay.
This one property has two addresses because it is a duplex.
Okay. That's all I got for now.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Mr. Robert?
Yes, Mr. Meloon, you mentioned that back in '73, the zoning board set it to all single-family home?
Correct. That was the citation that I was able to find through my research.
Okay. And why do you think they did that?
I don't know that.
Okay. Possibly uniformity of the neighborhood.
That's one potential. I think they did it on a mass scale without looking to see what was actually in fact built there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm a little bit confused, but I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. You're going for a rezoning,
Correct.
and there's a duplex there. Help me out, Mr. Jeff.
Sure. So in 1973, the property was rezoned to RU 113 from RU 3,
Correct.
which was, the county was getting rid of that multifamily zoning district. And so when they rezoned the property, it made the duplex use non-conforming. So this request would legitimize that existing duplex. However, it would allow for the introduction of the short-term rental use on the property, because anything more than RU 24, that's a multifamily zoning district, would allow for the short-term rental, or I should say the resort dwelling use on the property.
Now, would you be okay with a BDP on the short lease term if you got the zoning?
I would have to chat with him about that to see, because that would obviously be binding on anybody in the future as well.
Correct.
I don't know what that means. The BET, whatever you're talking about.
Could you go into more explanation for him?
Sure. A BDP is a legal document that gets recorded over at the clerk of the court. It's a voluntary legal agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and the property owner, and it outlines certain stipulations that it agreed to upon in a public hearing.
Yeah, if that's what it takes to get it to be zoned properly, then yes.
Okay.
So if you're, sorry.
Let's see if there's anybody in the audience.
Right.
We're maneuvering a little bit here, and we
No,
don't.
but I've got some notes here. That's
Yeah.
why I'm asking these questions. But
the public- if
is there
there's a
anyone
public-
in the audience going to speak for or against this item?
Yes.
Bring them on up. So if you'd give us just a minute and let us talk to these fine people. Sir, if you could come up first, you're closer. If you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Pope. I'm 27 South Court. I built a retirement home next door to this property. Today we're here for rezoning, and it's nothing more than an Airbnb. That's what it's been for the past 8 months. It's been nothing but hell on our street. The neighborhood's come together. I'm sure you have multiple emails stating that, and so I'm just here to represent the neighborhood. We don't want this.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
If you want, I have a tape to play for you, a little taste of what we deal with in the neighborhood, if you want to hear it. If not, I'll sit down.
We got an idea, but thank you.
Okay, I
though.
think you do.
Sir or ma'am, if you would like to come up and get as close to that microphone as you can and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Thomas Johnson. I live at 28 South Court, diagonally across from this property with my wife, Yvette Winia, also an owner. I have a little statement to read here. This letter is to describe our total opposition to the changes in our proposed zoning on the end of our small, quiet street. This street is South Court in Brevard County, Indialantic, Florida. We note that South Court is a short, dead-end street with virtually all single-family homes. We wish to specifically object to the rezoning of the property at 29 and 31 South Court here in Indialantic. There is no good reason to potentially raise the number of people that would live here on our quiet, dead-end street here in Brevard. I might note that there is an active code enforcement case underway right now which indicates a problem with the resort dwelling code by the claimant here. The owner is operating an Airbnb at this time in active violation of county ordinance on our street and has been since he's moved here. A code enforcement case against this case is in place at this time. These consequences are real and serious. For example, this past April, at the same location, what we will classify as an unruly gathering next to the church property and diagonal from our property resulted in a construction of party tents and speakers, an unruly party, including increased traffic, pedestrian traffic, guest parking congestion on public and private property, late night noise from guests, vehicles, music, fireworks, outdoor tent, and loudspeakers. Public intoxication was demonstrated and smoking. Motorcycle demonstration and noise took place. Trespassing was included. We can barely support the traffic, which comes down our tiny dead-end street every day and usually turns around as they don't know where they are. We want to send this letter to you, which I have, and let you know that we are totally opposed to this rezoning endeavor, and we are against so many or newly located people which might end up at the end of our quiet street as a result of this rezoning.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anybody else would like to speak for or against this item? Oh, ma'am, if you could come up and get as close to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Yvette Winia. I live at 28 South Court, and we've been there since 2016. We've been neighbors, my husband and I, Tom Johnson, to the Holy Name, which has been great. Yes, I do understand there are other resort, maybe the first 5 condos that are on South Court, and we noticed that there were different people that were coming and going, but it wasn't really a problem because we're towards the end. So we have noticed an increase in traffic increase in residents, unfamiliar faces, and when COVID was happening, we'd say good morning, hello, and it wasn't the 3-month or the 90-day. They'd be there for the week, or it could be a weekend stay. And I told my husband, please keep our distance, COVID, and I just wasn't very, coming from Canada, coming from Georgia, and it was fine, but it just, we have animals, we have a closed area. Now the gate from the Holy Name is closed. I don't know why that has gone up, but maybe traffic from construction or people passing through the parking lot of the Holy Name. They own that whole area back there. Our street can't even allow 2 cars to bypass. We have an Escalade. It is a big car. We have to either wait. No parking is allowed on the road. Emergency vehicles or any type of traffic or police that need to come through, it is overbearing and too much closure. There are currently, with the resale, also I'm afraid with our home, that it would go down in value with a vacation rental or resort dwelling. And yes, they may want to do it as a duplex. Bob, our McMillan, the neighbor that lived there since '73, Bob McMillan, he was a man where his wife passed and he was alone. He was an elder gentleman. We met him when we moved in 2016, and he was very quiet. And he had an extended lot next door, which the Popes purchased. Fine, he passed away. He gave everything to Chapman, Janine Chapman, and then another owner took it, and then someone else bought it, which was Nash. We like Nash. I just don't want the traffic to increase. It is busy. There has been circumstances in his residence and then the residence next to us, which is 30 South Court, that have ran it as an Airbnb or let be a weekend stay, a week stay. I just can't have that continue in our neighborhood.
Okay.
I'm very opposed against it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to speak for or against this item? Okay. If y'all could come back up. And hearing that, I bring it back to the board. We have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir. I just have one. This lease to Kelly Verbal, is she an occupant,
Yes.
full-time?
She lives there. She lives there right now. Yes.
Okay, and it's a 6-month lease?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And she's there full-time during the 6 months? She's not subletting?
No. She's a nurse, so she works pretty much all the time, and then she lives there. Just at night.
Okay, what about the other tenant?
His name is Mike. He's retired. He lives there full time.
Okay. And no sublets?
No, it's not allowed in the lease.
Well, it says that they can get permission.
No, I don't allow that. I have cameras on the house. We can pull up months and months of video to show that there's not been multiple people coming and going, things like that. If there are people that are coming and going, it's going to be just the whoever's renting, their like friends or family or things like that. It's not anything like they're saying parties all the time or anything like that.
But that's what they're saying.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
My question's for staff. Airbnb's happening all over, regardless of whether it's approved or not. The enforcement mechanisms on, not on planning and zoning, it's on code enforcement, correct?
Correct.
So if they are currently, hypothetically, Airbnb in this place right now, even if he just said a moment ago, I think it was Ben who asked about a BDP for not allowing short-term, he says he would agree to it. Just because he agrees to it still doesn't mean we have any enforcement over that. That comes back to code enforcement.
That is correct, and I believe that the code enforcement case against the applicant is for operating an Airbnb or resort dwellings, but it then becomes a code enforcement where we would have to go out and cite them and go through that process.
So that has nothing to do with a zoning change then?
Well, the zoning change would legitimize the ability to have that use. Whether you or I should say the board feels that that is an appropriate use for there, the zoning would have that potential of introducing that use. It also has the ability to legitimize the existing duplex use.
So the RU 210, which there's several in the vicinity of this, is there another zoning that they could go to that still legitimizes the duplex, that would still ban the Airbnb, even if he, again, hypothetically is still going to do it?
No, because all of our multifamily zoning districts allow for the resort dwellings or the short-term rental use on there. So there is not a single family, or I should say multifamily zoning district that would allow one and not the other.
Because, I mean, the previous applicant, we just did the same thing for them. So how are we going to do it for one and not the other? Albeit the concern is from the neighborhood that there's going to be Airbnb here.
I think that you all need to recognize the public input and make your decision based on that. Look at the zoning map and see if the request is consistent and compatible with the surrounding area.
I mean, it is concurrent, as we can see, but the Airbnb is the sticky point here, whereas the previous property, that's not a concern.
Well, from a zoning perspective, there is no multifamily zoning to the west. It's all associated up next to A1A.
Approximately 4 parcels away? 5.
1 to 5.
And some to the south.
So if I'm correct, if I'm hearing this right, if the zoning is approved today, then the resort dwelling is all, tags along with it, and Airbnb or short-term rentals is allowed.
So just so everyone understands that this board doesn't approve the request, they just make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So it would be up to the board to decide to approve the RU 210 zoning district, and it would allow for resort dwellings as a permitted use.
And they can't put a BDP on it.
You can make that part of your motion, and it's up to the applicant to voluntarily agree to it.
I've got a question. If you got a 6-month lease or whatever it was up here you handed out, and these are long-term, why are you wanting to change your zoning?
In order to comply with what the zoning code is. Currently, we're not in compliance. We attempted to do a non-conforming use. That was, the county told us that, okay, no, you have to do a rezoning, so that is why we're here today.
So they have to rezone.
Well, one of the other options that they could do, and I don't know if they would even qualify it for, is what we call a pre-existing use, where the applicant would demonstrate that use existed prior to the zoning change. I don't know if it does, if that information is even available. You're talking, probably 60 years ago. So
Right.
It's a long time. It's very hard to prove. The most expeditious remedy in this case would be to rezone the property if it's consistent and compatible.
Well, everything around is 113.
Mr. Chair, Jeff, what happens if we don't approve and the county doesn't approve? What happens to the property? Because it's non-conforming.
Then the applicant would have to remove that use. That's part of the code enforcement case.
You mean it could no longer be a duplex?
Yes.
But if it was already built that way,
We're not gonna actively go after, an applicant if he's doing a use. unless it's a code enforcement case. And I believe that that wasn't part of the code enforcement case to operating a duplex. It was operating an Airbnb in a residential zone property.
Is there 2 separate power meters on the property?
2 meters, 2 mailboxes.
So it's clear that it's always been a duplex. The Airbnb is the issue on the code enforcement. So if they cut out the Airbnb, he doesn't have to do anything. But what happens if he goes to sell the property? Can he even sell it because it's non-conforming?
Oh, yeah.
Brevard County Planning Development do not regulate the sale of property. Whether that gets disclosed during during that process, I don't know. If we get a call or someone asks us about it, we fully disclose what the uses of the property is and what can be done and what can't be done, and the remedies to fix that.
If a realtor gets this, they'll have no problem selling it. Tell them what they want to hear.
He just bought it 2 years ago, right?
Well,
I bought it in October.
This,
they probably promised him a rose garden too, you don't know.
Now,
Mr.
does
Chairman?
the board have, this is the public comment on this item, correct? On
Yes.
On H5? All of this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the applicant, are you willing to have a BDP attached, which says that you will not have a resort dwelling?
Yes, I'd be willing to do that.
So that would limit you to no less than
90 days.
90 days.
I'm fine with that. I just want the property to conform with what it is.
It seems to me that that would solve our problem of getting the property in conformance. He gets the zoning, and yet it will also take care of the concerns that the residents have about Airbnb and so on.
I'm sure this has been a rented out duplex for many.
Hold on now, we've all had a chance to talk. Sorry, we got a room full.
Mr. Chairman,
Maybe not.
this is a question for staff. If it's been zoned single-family since 1963 and it's never come up prior to that, that's 50 years. Is there a mechanism for an exception for, and what is that mechanism?
So the property was administratively rezoned in '73. And so any use that's been established would be considered non-conforming, and there's a process to establish non-conforming use. But I will tell you that the inclusion of a BDP to prohibit short-term or resort dwellings would rectify the co-enforcement case.
And we did attempt to do this administrative approval, however, I was denied by the county and told to submit a rezoning. And that is in record 23, 23AA 00015.
I can support the rezoning with the BDP. I mean, it's, one of the biggest obstacles I have, though, is that I looked on the county records and it does only have one address. So it's, I mean, a normal duplex would have 2 addresses. So would that, if we did change the zoning, would that have to be changed with the county as well? Would it have 2 actual addresses? Oh, it does, you're right. Yeah, I definitely could support then the rezoning with the BDP.
Is that a motion?
Ben, what concerns me is the fact that every other home on there is single-family residence, and then at the very end, we're going to loosen this thing up.
I agree, but you're not going to have any more or less people. It's rented now.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to have an abundance of traffic all of a sudden because there's already people living there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a hard time supporting a BDP and a zone change, based on the preponderance of evidence that the public is pretty much against it, and it's their homes, not ours. So I have misgivings. I would like to see a better vehicle to rectify that it was originally built as a duplex, but it's been operating for 50 years. As a duplex, but zoned as single-family. And I think the zoning for single-family is to protect the residents that are objecting to a zoning change.
When they rezoned it in 73, did they change it then to residential?
As far as what the record shows me is that it was zoned from R3, which is a multifamily zoning district, and it went to RU 113. And that was done in 1973.
Let me assure you, 73 zoning was a lot different than today.
Yes,
If
Mr.
you
Ray.
knew Joe or Jim and, you got that before you ever hit the P and Z board, so let's don't get too enamored with the 73 zoning.
Yes, ma'am. Debbie, please.
So did I hear you say that you purchased it this past October?
Yes.
So,
I don't know the exact closing date, but it was around October, yeah.
okay. So the code enforcement, when did that come into play?
I believe it's 23.
So is it prior to him owning the property or after?
It's I don't know, I didn't hear when the property was purchased. But this
October.
is, so, this is a 2023 code enforcement case. I don't know when the
would be
code
after.
enforcement case was brought forward.
Do you know if this was when you owned the property, the code enforcement?
Yes, after I purchased it, it was probably like December-ish when code enforcement contacted me, and we went back and forth with it. And then when I went to the last hearing with them, they explained to me all the situations. I said, okay, took all the Airbnb, everything down. I actually got proof that I took it down probably 2 months prior to even going to the hearing with code enforcement. And just recently it was brought to my attention that there was a VRBO listing that was put up on the property that I had no idea about. I just got proof today from VRBO that this listing was made through a scam website. And what they do is they take your bookings, they collect your deposit, and then before you check in, they take your deposit and they cancel your listing. So I got VRBO actually took the whole listing down. They took them like 2 weeks to do it. But I've been with the code enforcement back and forth, dealing with him, and he understands, and he's on the same page with me on what's going on.
So, I mean, I think as you can understand here, we're sort of in a weird position as we sit up here. Obviously,
No, I agree.
we want to make sure we're doing the right things by these neighbors and the neighbors that have been there for a long time.
I'm not trying to make this a resort dwelling anymore. I understand that if it goes to the zoning, that I can make it an Airbnb. I don't care, we'll do the, whatever you guys said, to not be that way. I just want to be conforming with the property is.
And I think the further concern from that is if you sell the property next week and we've already changed it, then we don't necessarily have that promise from the next owner. And
Doesn't
that
it go with the property?
The BDP does.
Yeah, so then
With the
that's,
BDP, that solves that problem.
yeah, so then.
I agree.
So
That's why the
if
BDP
that's
would
the
be the
case,
best thing
then
to do.
if that's the case, then that's really good. Then,
I'm
yeah,
fine
so
with
if that's the case, then I can support this.
I think that it's going to be operated as a duplex with or without consent as it's being done now, so why not make it conforming?
And I think from the sound of it, we didn't hear earlier that he was running it as Airbnb, but now he is not.
Correct.
And so that might hopefully alleviate the neighbors' concerns, because if it was being an Airbnb and it's now not, like Ben just said, it's gonna be a duplex no matter what. They're not taking it away from anybody, whether it's you, the owner, or the next
neighbors
owner.
that we have over here, if I'm not allowed to have an Airbnb there, it's not going to be put there. Code enforcement's on my door every single day there. I'm not going to try to jump around with that. I understand the point, like, it's no more. Okay, got it.
We're not allowing Airbnb if we do what's been proposed.
Right.
We're just making it conforming.
And I do want to point out that the 1963 variance found that this was a duplex, this property was a duplex. When they sought a variance from what was then the land development code for various setback issues, it did state that they were going to build it as a duplex then.
The guy sitting down on the end probably approved that.
Mr. Chair, just so the board understands that the code enforcement case was reported on March 15th, 2023.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
I need a motion.
I will move to approve it, or recommend approval of the zoning change with the BDP for the 90-day minimum rentals.
Second.
We got a motion by Ben, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Discussion.
Aye.
Can we have a discussion?
Well, hold on a second now. I don't,
You can have a discussion after the motion is out. If we stipulate in the BMP, which I hate, BDP, that a minimum of a 1-year rental rather than not 90
The
days,
county is 90 days, so how are you going to stipulate that on this property specifically?
because it's a voluntary BDP.
You can request that. What it becomes is an enforcement issue that there's really no way for the county to enforce that.
But are they going to be able to enforce the 90-day?
They can, because as part of that would be considered short-term rental. And so the only time that we would know, part of that process is if someone were to say, hey, they're doing short-term rental on the property, and that way we know that in our definition, anything less than 90 days is short-term rental.
So there's a process in our code that allows for prima facie evidence for violations of the resort dwelling code, and that requires county staff to go out and observe the violations happening. And then that's when they bring the evidence forward to the special magistrate to make a determination whether or not that resort dwelling definition is being violated.
So would you feel comfortable that with that BDP, that the property would not operate as a resort dwelling?
Well, my understanding is that you're going to carve out resort dwelling from the allowable uses.
So it'd still be a code violation?
So it would still be a code violation.
No different
So,
than it is
right.
now.
Anything beyond 90 days would be allowable. Anything shorter than that, which would require evidence from the code enforcement officers, would be needed in order to process the case in front of the code enforcement magistrate.
Okay. Thank you.
all right. Any more discussion? We got a motion by Ben, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Robert and Mr. Menaboo opposed. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H6 has been tabled, and H7 has been tabled.
Just, Mr. Chair, just for the record, item
Do we need to vote on
H6.
that, number 7?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to vote on 7?
No, you do not. The applicant has requested to table that to the August 14th, 2023 meeting.
Okay, and we're going to item H8.
Good afternoon. Charles Stephen Douglas and Deborah K. Douglas, trustees, and Sandra J. Douglas request a change of zoning classification from IU1 to BU2 under application number 23Z00023 with tax account number 3010512 located in District 3.
And I assume you're the applicant?
No, I am here representing the applicant. My name is Brittany Lacan at 5165 Wilden Road, Mico, Florida 32976. I'm interested in purchasing the property, but as of right now, it has no future use. And this was what we talked about doing to make sure we could actually use the property to get it rezoned first. We're looking to do just a boat and storage rental.
Outdoor?
Yep, open storage.
So you're reducing the intensity of the use.
That's what was recommended by zoning.
All right, ma'am, hold on one second. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
For the applicant, would she be willing to add a BDP to restrict the BU2 uses to only the RV outdoor storage?
As long as I'm able to rent RVs from it.
Staff, is that,
Our zoning code only, we don't restrict the renting of RVs. We just say that the storage would be required as far as BU2. If the board wants to further restrict to just RV and boat storage, there's nothing in our code that would prohibit the renting of them.
I believe that a BU2 is acceptable for rentals. I'm at her property right across the street. She's a BU2, and I'm,
yeah. It's, my concern is that there are some other uses that if you decided you didn't want to do that and you want to sell the property and it's BU2, somebody else could go in and put
I
some
would
other use in there.
right. As long as I can rent and store RVs and boats, that's all I want to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think what he's wanting to convey is you may end up selling this property down the road, and whatever you put that BDP on that property is going to stick with it. So a future buyer may not want to buy it if you put that BDP on it.
Then I probably wouldn't want to do it. Because right now, they can't sell it, it has no use, so. What other things can you do on a BU2?
Crematorium? Would you like to have a crematorium out there?
No.
Well, to limit the use of this to only forever being an RV and boat storage, that's a disservice to the town of Micco and to this corridor here. This, nobody's going to put anything there that doesn't fit. But if you limit it, a good example is there was across from Walmart on Wickham Road. There was a BDP on that property that said it could only be used as a gas station. And it sat as an empty gas station for years. So if the use, if this RV and boat storage doesn't fly, and you've got a BDP on there that says it can only be an RV and boat storage, then you've completely made this land useless and derelict. And you've got a bad piece of property
Whoever owns
on a
the
main
property
road.
does have the right to come back to us and say, can we remove it? The whole purpose of a BDP is to give us, the board, and give the people who are in residence of the property a voice on what's going to happen.
For me, as a property owner looking to purchase it, that's one reason why they haven't been able to sell it as of now. It's been for sale for quite a long time, because nobody's going to want to come up here and rezone it. I just do because I know her, and I can use the property, so.
If I may, board, put things in perspective for you. So currently the property's got community commercial land use, and it has IU-1 zoning. IU-1 is an industrial zoning classification, which is a higher intensification for zoning. However, when I say that, you can't have CC land use and IU-1 zoning. They're incompatible. So you really need to rezone the property to make that consistency. So I understand that this board has got some reluctance to some of the uses that would be allowed in BU2, but I can tell you the existing zoning's got some pretty intense uses that are already by right that are on the property. If the board decides to go the BDP route, I would suggest that you allow BU1 uses and the RV and boat storage, or some kind of compromise to, some of the non-noxious uses on there to give the applicant as much flexibility that she thinks that she may need.
Are we looking for a motion?
I prefer the BDP to restrict the use, to restrict the BU2 uses.
But they can, in the future, get it removed, correct?
Yes, yes, you come by, do a
Okay.
public hearing.
As long as I can rent trailers and store trailers and boats.
It is harder to get it taken off once it's
Yes. It's going to be harder for somebody to buy it. Like, you're up here right now trying to buy this. And if we had put the BDP on it,
But he's saying they already basically have the right to use it as a BU2 if they wanted to now? What did you say?
No, that's not what I
did you
said.
say?
What I said was existing zoning is IU1, which is an industrial zoning classification.
Okay.
However, with CC land use, there's that incompatibility. You got commercial and industrial. So from a use perspective, you have some intensification of uses. However, you have to have a balancing act of whether you change the land use or change the zoning to make it consistent.
And that's probably why the property is sat for sale for so long.
That's probably why.
So would IU give her the opportunity to outside storage?
It has no future use as of right now.
No, if we had that.
Yes, it does. But it allows for industrial uses on the property that's not allowed in the future land use category
So
or
you pretty much
designation.
done nothing.
That's the issue.
I could get behind this, as Ron mentioned with the BDP. I think that we're opening Pandora's box, and we may not like where that leads. The applicant doesn't know if she's going to hold or sell, I mean. So, if this is your intention, this gets you to what you want, and,
Right.
if down the road you do decide to change,
Come back here
you
and do
can
it. Okay,
come back
I'm
to the
okay with
board.
that.
So,
How do I go about doing that? How do I-
That is a great question, and
I
we are
couldn't
all
answer that.
waiting on Mr. Ron to make a motion.
Okay.
The motion I would make would be similar to the motions that we have, BDPs we've attached to other BU2 properties, in that all the BU1 uses are available, but we restrict the BU2 uses to only the specific use that the applicant wants. In other cases, it was mini warehouses. In this case, it's outdoor boat storage.
I understand that. How do I get the piece of paper? That's what
You'll
I,
have to work with staff.
okay.
So Ron, if I understand correctly, you have, your motion is for approval of BU1, approval of the request with the limitation of BU1 uses only, and the BU2 use of mini storage and RV and boat storage,
Correct.
And RV rentals.
and RVs.
Right.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt over here to your right. Did we get public comment yet?
I asked,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
So, second to Ron's motion.
So we have a motion by Ron with the BDP. We have a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Nay.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Brian. Okay, item H9.
Board, the next two items, I'm going to be read in together, but they will need separate motions, H9 and H10. Afficap Cocoa LLC, represented by Mr. Javier Fernandez, requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment under 23S.03 to change the future land use designation from Res 4 and NC, which is neighborhood commercial, to Res 15, which is residential 15, under application number 23SS00003, tax account numbers 2424005 and 2441241 in District 1. Item H10 is the zoning companion to that, requesting a change in zoning classification from AU to RU 210 under application number 23Z00028 with the same tax account numbers and located in District 1.
And sir, I assume you're the applicant. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. For the record, Javier Fernandez with law office at 1200 Brickell Avenue, Miami, Florida. Here on behalf of Afficap Cocoa, LLC. Joined today by the two principals of this entity, Jose Malabet and Alex Sherman, as well as Kelly Havonen, our planner, and my associate, Alex Emo. Thank you, sir.
A little bit about what you're wanting to do.
Sure, sir. We have a brief presentation I can go through if you'd like. For those of you who are on the board, back in 2021, a affiliate company, this applicant was before you for a similar land use and zoning change on a property just east of it, located on Plucky Bomb Road. I don't know if we can bring up the presentation. We'll give up copies. It's on the computer. Escape, yep. Great, thank you. There we go. Sorry about that. So for those who might have been on the board back in 2021, the yellow parcel was brought forward for a land use and zoning change consistent with what's before you today. That's located in the unincorporated portions of Brevard County between the city of Cocoa and Rockledge. The applicant then began a site plan approval process throughout 2022. And as we were working with staff, we realized that unfortunately, the existing lake could not be used for both open space and water retention because we could not meet the water quality standards that were required by the county. Two of the investors then acquired the adjoining property that is the subject of today's application. What we are asking is basically at staff's request to have the property rezoned so it's consistent with the land use and zoning designation next door so we can effectuate the property. This parcel, which is located just east of Range Road, will be used solely for stormwater retention facilities. We are preserving an existing wetland that is on the eastern half of the property, but that is the reason we're here before you today. Similar situation to one of the other applications before you. In this case, the project is viable. We're eager to move forward, hopefully with staff support, your support, and staff support as well. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Is this property, it's contiguous to the city of Cocoa, isn't it? To the north?
It is. We are just located to the south of the city of Cocoa, and we are utilizing both their water and sewer facilities to effectuate the adjoining development, sir.
And then you're going to bring this in?
We have not had conversations with Cocoa about that as of yet. We have.
You're going to bring this in?
We are not intending to at this point in time unless.
You're after their water?
Unless it's a condition of our water and sewer
That's all I
agreement.
need to say.
That's fine.
That's good.
Sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Kelly Hyvonen, Land Development Strategies. The City of Cocoa does not require annexation for their services. And so we don't have an intent to annex into the City of Cocoa.
Thank you for the clarification.
They don't require it, but they're looking forward to seeing you? No.
We're not the other way.
Okay. That's the whole question.
All right, if you could hold there
Sure.
1 second, sir. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? That's great news. Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the request is consistent and compatible, and I move that we recommend approval of this land use change, H9.
Got a motion by Ron, a second by Debbie on item H9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
And
Now, item H10.
Mr. Chairman, on item H10, I move that we recommend approval of this zoning change.
Item H10, we got a motion by Ron, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Great presentation, too.
Thank you.
Okay, item H11.
Good afternoon. Item H11 is Rebecca and Alan Potter request a change of zoning classification from RR1 and AU to all AU. Application number is 23Z00011. Tax account number 3006359, located in District 3.
Okay, and I assume you're the applicant.
I'm Rebecca Potter. I'm at 7660 US Highway 1. This is the property we're speaking of right here. I'm full-time resident, disabled vet. This is our homestead. This property originally was several acres. About 20 years ago, it was taken and split up into 4 or 5 different properties. And these, we have been able to acquire 3 of these back over time. So what we've done is we've joined them together. The only thing that we have between us is the there's a road between that easements to the other two properties in the back that we don't own. We have already joined those properties together, the ones that we do have. And what we're asking for is consistency with the zoning. We've had everything out there from waterfront being, I think it was AU, and the property was RR. And so they were all different kinds of properties when it was split up 17 years ago. And so we're just asking for consistency to go across all of our 3 properties that we've brought together now. And you can see that I think the county has looked at it, the office, the staff has said it's very consistent with what is there, what has been there since it originated and being split up. So we're just asking for it to be brought back to AU. So it's more useful for us because we don't want the development there. We want this to just be open land for us.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on, Mr. Ron. John
Okay.
beat you to the punch.
Quick on the draw. No BDP on this one.
Right.
It says in the comments that you want to have this as a family farm.
This is just a little micro farm that we're looking at, right? We already have the AU on the side of the property that is up against Snug Harbor. And that would require us to, if we want to have this farm established and we don't get the rezoning to incorporate the rest, then our animals would be up against Snug Harbor instead of open land. So what we're trying to do is be able to say, we want to put our animals on the open side and not on the side where Snug Harbor is. Because with our property the way it is now, with the AU, with the house on it, it allows us to put our animals right there.
What type of animals do you have?
We're talking chickens and possibly having either goats or sheep, just a couple. This is just our little micro farm. It's not for any purpose other than for family. We're self-sustaining is what we're trying to do.
Okay, how many animals would you have?
Oh, I don't know that I have a limit on chickens. Not
Let's move on to the sheep then.
maybe 2. That would be my limit as to. You would always need the nanny with a baby, so that would be a revolving type of thing. You would always have to, in order to have milk and to make cheese and to make these kind of products, you need to have some kind of mother nanny who's constantly nursing in order to do that. So I at least need 2, if not 3, there to do that.
And this would be for your personal consumption, not,
Absolutely.
not for sale?
No, I'm not trying to sell any sheep.
Or cheese?
No,
Or
no,
milk?
no. The purpose, again, is for our family to be self-sustaining. We're trying to run gardens. We're looking at, when I say a family, I mean my daughter lives there with our 2 grandchildren. My sister, who's disabled, lives there with us. And so it's just us. So
So you're not going to run it as a business?
That's not the intention, is to run a farm as a business, no, sir. It's just simply the intention to allow for us some freedoms of nearly 4 acres that we have there, and also to preserve. We don't want houses there. That's why we bought those properties, is to not have houses beside us. And I mean, the big scope of things, if we could continue to go on down the line all the way to Winn-Dixie and purchase them, I'm down for conserving and not having any more houses there. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just make this back to Florida. And we're losing so much of Florida.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Ron?
Yes. Do you plan on having any agritourism?
What is that exactly? Help me.
I knew that was coming.
Okay, so tell me what that means.
Staff, would you give our definition of agritourism?
I will do my best. So it falls under the state statutes. It could be anything that the state has determined as agritourism, which can be a petting zoo, to having an outdoor hoop and holler. It's a very broad definition that tends to have some off-site impacts. Does that sum it up?
Jeff generally summed up pretty good. It's outlined in section 570.86 Florida statutes. It's an incredibly broad statute. It includes ceremonial, historical, cultural types of events that take place on a farm or agricultural-related property.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of a loose, excuse me?
Better be careful how you do your birthday parties.
I know. That's really a loose interpretation of like having a church group over and singing. But that's about what we're doing right now.
Okay.
It's just, every other Monday night having a church group over singing. That's it.
Since you're going to be self-sustaining, are you planning on doing any butchering or slaughtering on site?
We haven't gotten that far yet. So, I am not, that doesn't make me queasy at the thought of it. So I'm.
In the animals, you said you were primarily going to be chickens and goats?
I think it'd be chickens primarily chickens, but
Any larger animals like cows?
I'm not interested in horses, and I'm not really interested in cows unless it was a miniature cow. I'm not excited about full-size animals. And having to clean up after them now.
That could be a problem.
It could be, yes. It could be, yes.
Okay.
But as far as all the grass that we have out there, a goat would be nice, because it would help.
Yeah, keeps them mowing down that way.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
All right, Mr. John.
Yes, one more question. Are you going to fence the property?
It is now. It already has a permit under it. We are fencing it now. It currently has a permit that was issued just last month. We have about another 5 months to finish the project. And it's actually a very, my husband has engineered a very palatable looking fence line that's going to be facing the one. And it's going to be all wood framed out with, we're using hog fence. In between the wood frame out. It's very, very palatable.
You said a hog fence?
Yes, the hog fence gradiates from small and gets larger on the squares on the way up. So the idea of that is to be allow bigger animals to get through, little animals stay in. That's the whole idea of that.
Okay, and one more question. How many roosters are you going to have?
Well, I don't like to have too many, maybe one or two, because the idea is we want to, in order to sustain, we have to have at least one set aside set of hens that would be primarily just laying for the purpose of redoing our laying stock. I mean, we eat a lot of eggs, so this isn't about trying to sell meat. This isn't about anything like that. But we do have to renew our flock. And the nice thing about that is we wouldn't have to pay to do that. We wouldn't have to pay to bring in all their chickens from somewhere else. We would be able to have our own.
Yeah, I was
doing
just
that.
concerned with the neighborhood with the houses to the north of you. If
Well,
your
that
roosters
is-
are noisy.
Well, that's the whole idea of trying to get the consistency between the two properties. Even if we do have a rooster or two, it removes them over to the other property, so that way it's not up against Snug Harbor. There is nobody around us everywhere else. We have nothing. So the 7690 is our property, and that's right up against the railroad tracks. So there's nothing anywhere around us except our direct neighbor, which is the Torreses, and they would have no exposure to the rooster in the event that we have the consistent zoning between both the properties now. Because it's all one property, we just have two different zonings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion by Brian, a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Item H12.
H12 is John Earl and Chelsea Dominique Bassford request a change of zoning classification from BU1A to AU. Application number 23Z00020, tax account number 2003014, located in District 1.
All right. How we doing, Mr. David?
I'm doing well, for a change.
Name and address, please, sir, for the record.
David Bassford, MBV Engineering, 1250 West O'Galley. I am the applicant representative. I am also his brother. So I have a unique situation here. My brother is trying to build a single-family residence. The zoning that it currently is, which is restricted neighborhood commercial, allows for that, but he has been to 5 different banks and nobody will lend to him because it says commercial on it for a single-family residence. So we're here for a rezoning. In AU.
That's
Yay.
pretty self-explanatory.
It is.
All right, well, seeing that, is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve or recommend approval.
Second.
We got a motion by Ben, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you much.
Thank you, sir. That passed unanimously. Okay, item H13, please.
H13, Church of Deliverance Incorporated request a change of zoning classification from INL to RU17, application number 23Z00027, tax account number 2417019, located in District 2.
Okay, and ma'am, are you the applicant?
Yes, I'm Abigail Acosta at 6502 Kingsbury Way, Zionsville, Indiana, 46077. And my husband is here with me. We're a private couple who wants to change a church that has been not been used for at least 3 to 4 years. It was on the market as a church for over a year before we suggested the idea of a single-family residence. We would like to do this for our personal home. We have redone homes in Indianapolis previously, and we're excited about moving down to Florida. And this seemed like a really neat thing. We've always wanted to redo a church, and so that is our idea there. Let's see. Currently, we went with the zoning change that was consistent with the houses and the empty lots to the east of the property currently. There is one house to the east, one house to the south, and 2 houses on the other side of Tropical Trail, and an empty lot to the north. And there are 3 churches within, I think, a quarter mile. Let's see. We plan to use the same building footprint, though we don't have our complete plan completely established at this point.
Well, we're planning and zoning. We're not the building department. You're good.
Good, okay.
All right, seeing that, ma'am, if you could hang, does anyone want to speak for or against this item in the audience? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions?
We have one speaker.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. I did not see you, ma'am.
My name is Sherry Scott. Address is 4025 East Railroad Avenue, Cocoa, Florida, 32926. I'm actually the president of the Church of Deliverance, and we're for it. We're actually downsizing. Since the COVID and everything happened, our congregation downsized dramatically. So we're looking to go to a smaller location, so that's really why we're interested in selling the property at this time. And we were looking for someone that, either another church to take it, but then we met them, so it was like, okay, they want it for their home. So then we're here just to say we're all in agreement with it. The board members and everybody in agreement with it.
Well,
That's
this
it.
is a great thing then.
Right?
Yes.
It is.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept the submittal here today.
I'll second.
We got and we have discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. John.
Have you done an environmental on the property?
No, we have not. We aren't planning on changing any of the current cement footprint, anything like that. We have not, no.
No. The reason for my question, it might sound strange, but was there a cemetery on the property?
I'll answer that. Even for that lady out there, no, there isn't.
There's
Just
no indication of one.
Yeah, I know. I can't see it on the aerial.
I
but I'm
know
just
that neighborhood real well.
Okay.
Does he bear witness?
We've minimized in those there. Yeah.
Are you good, Mr. John? Okay, we got a motion by Henry, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I think it's a cool idea.
Item H12.
H14?
See, I'm behind here.
Long
Item
day.
H14, yes.
H14, Stephen J. and Pacharee Ellison request a change of zoning classification from RU17 to SR, application number 23Z00017, tax account number 3008319, located in District 3.
Stephen Ellison, 1625 Los Palmos Drive, Palm Bay. My wife, Pacharee.
Pacharee Ellison?
Okay. And a little bit about what you're wanting to do, sir.
To comply with future land use, we need to change our zoning to something that's compatible.
Okay.
Single-family residence to single-family residence.
Hold on one. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right. Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any questions for the applicant?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion by Brian, a second by Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Thank you. That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H15.
Yes, item H15, CP Venture 5, AMC LLC, requests CUP for alcoholic beverages, full liquor for on-premise consumption in conjunction with the Cigar Bar in a PUD zoning classification. Application number is 23Z00018. Tax count number is 2627467 in District 4.
And sir, you're the applicant.
I'm Ron Robbins, 561 Spring Lake Drive, Melbourne. I'm representing the applicant.
Okay.
We're here to request a conditional use permit to have on-site sale of liquor to go along with the upscale cigar bar. The location of the facility is in an existing multi-tenanted retail property at the Avenues. It's one of their shopping strips there. And that's it. It's pretty simple.
That's very simple, actually. All right. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. We have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair?
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Henry, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Just-
opposed?
Just about everybody in Brevard now has a CUP for alcohol.
That
Thank you
motion
all.
passed unanimously. Item H16.
Yes, item H16, Norfolk Parkway LLC, requests an amendment of an existing BDP and a BU2 zoning classification. Application is 23Z00012, tax account number is 28-02676, located in District 5.
Okay, and Mr. Moyer, you know the drill, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Bruce Moia with MBB Engineering, representing the applicant. Some of you, except for maybe some of the newer people, have seen this before. This was the project that a previous developer had looked at and wanted to do some storage on. Since then, they've sold it to another developer who wants to put storage, but they want to also be able to have buildings on it. So originally, we came here and asked for just a boat and RV outdoor storage, but the new owner would like to also have the option to put buildings and have self-storage as well. That's the only difference, and you can see we've modified the BDP that would add that to the BDP and then restrict the building height to 25 feet. All the other conditions remain the same. Basically, it's the same request. It's still storage.
This one just won't go away.
Well, if you're familiar with the project, with the property, it's a difficult property. It's an old, I don't want to say illegally created landfill, but it's been dumped on with
Asphalt plant?
It's it's more of like a construction debris is what we're finding. So developing has been difficult. It's like a mountain in the middle of a lot of flat land. Interesting project, so.
So you're just amending the BDP?
Yeah, because we want to have the option to put the building, put buildings on it. Now, I don't know what it's going to take to actually put a building on a landfill, but we're going to find out.
You're a good engineer.
Yeah. You know, we really want the option because if we, we spend tens of thousands of dollars to do the research and find out we can't build it, we still want to have the RV. We still want to have the original, approval.
Right.
We just want to be able to research the option to have buildings as well.
All right. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Yes, sir, if you could come up. We're going to miss you, Mr. Henry. Thank you, sir.
I'm Tom Ziomek, 4104 Caladium Circle in West Melbourne. I'm not for it or against it. Basically, we live in Sawgrass Lakes, and Norfolk is the only entrance and egress to our property and the school that's down there. And our concern is basically the traffic, because there's only one way to get in and out of the property that he's talking about, and I know you've already approved the outdoor storage. I just want to know how the traffic is going to impact if they have now indoor storage, and what the provisions are for, what's going to be there, because taking a left turn out of that street right now is dangerous sometimes. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when you increase the traffic.
Okay.
All right?
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak for or against this item? Mr. Moyer, if you could come back up to the podium.
Yes, sir. Traffic was, always an issue from the very beginning, which is really why storage is the proposed use, because that's about as least traffic generating you can possibly get. Will self-storage generate a little bit more than RV and boat storage? Possibly. But it will reduce the amount of large vehicles going in and out of the property as opposed to that. So it's a trade-off. But, we'll do a traffic study, obviously, that will be submitted to staff to make sure that there's no safety issues.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A question for the applicant. Mr. Moyer, you're going to put a 25-foot high building, 2 stories, I assume?
No. So, storage is, sometimes high bay. We're not planning on doing multi-story storage. I think we're going to do single story, but we're going to have height to allow, larger objects. But, maybe it's 2-story, but we didn't want to take advantage of the full height because we are on a hill and we do have neighbors. And but if you recall, we're retaining a 50-foot buffer with all those trees. And if you've been out there, those trees are real tall, and you probably won't see anything when we build on that because we're actually maintaining such a wide buffer with such tall trees. We just didn't want to, we wanted to limit it. We don't need to go 35 feet, so we're just self-imposing a limit on the height.
Do you anticipate raising the height of the lighting? Because it's set at 17 feet.
No, we're still using that. We're still including that limitation. So if we had lights on the building, they'd have to be lower. Lower.
Yeah, that's.
We're fine with
okay.
that. Yep.
So you're okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Question, with all your years of doing this and warehousing and so forth, have you ever looked at a study that shows that somebody who has an indoor unit like that just brings their stuff, drops it, and probably doesn't come back for a year or 2 or 3, versus people who are coming to get their boats and RVs are using it all the time?
Yeah, and they have those different classifications in the IT guide manual that tells you based on how many spaces or units you have, what traffic you generate based on that, yeah.
So it may not necessarily
It could be
generate more
less.
traffic, it could generate
It
less.
could generate less, yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Got a motion by John, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Item H17.
Yes, Redfish Water Disposal LLC requests removal of an existing BDP in a PIP zoning classification, application 23Z00019, located at tax count number 2311419 in District 1.
Okay. Sir, are you the applicant? If you could come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Keith Silverman, V3 Capital Group, 496 South Hunt Club Boulevard, Apopka, Florida.
All right.
So we purchased this property, so I represent an owner of Redfish. We purchased this property with the intent that it would be a concentrated wastewater processing facility. This essentially, the code didn't really permit the intent of what we were doing. It's essentially a package plant. The code in package plants requires that you have an associated residential, so package plants are intended to be temporary. This would be a permanent facility. Currently, Redfish does not have anywhere to dump their waste. The county sometimes accepts it, sometimes does not. What's essentially currently happening is that they are having to use private processors out of county. So their concentrated wastewater is having to be transported out of county. It's essentially subsidizing private entities who have a place to do this elsewhere. In working with staff, this just wouldn't be the right site. So we're intending to remove the BDP in order to sell the site. We do not currently have an intended use for the site. Our closing was essentially before the determination was made that our use would not be permitted. So we're sort of just stuck with a BDP from the guy before us. The intent was always to remove it. But.
All right. Hold on one. Anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Question. Would you say that again, about why you want the BDP removed?
To provide options to the next owner. It's currently a fairly restrictive BDP that I believe only allows for storage uses. It's just not a storage site.
Okay, so Redfish Water Disposal is going to be selling it, is that the idea?
Staff has determined that our intended use previously, so our intent here was always to remove the BDP, move through with the PIP zoning, and produce our concentrated wastewater processing plant. In working with staff, there is not really a place that's permitted within the county to do that at all.
Okay.
So we just need to get rid of the property.
Okay. So you don't have any idea what kind of uses your potential buyers might?
Generally, the seller of a property isn't responsible for that buyer's use.
No. Well, the problem I have with VU2 is they're pretty wide open.
So that's a PIP, I believe, that we would be going to, proposed industrial park.
And because it's right next to a residential area, that's a concern that I've got.
I have a question for the applicant. We don't have anything that you've represented the Redfish on. or somebody that is with Redfish that is giving you the right to represent this application.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to send you the development agreement that I have with them, or Morris Smith.
Yeah, we do have Morris as the applicant.
Is that the gentleman in the audience?
Yes, that's Morris.
Oh, okay, all right, just to clarify. And you're?
Yeah, I'm a member of the development team. Morris is the civil engineer. I'm the development partner.
Okay, we have the author, okay, yeah, we have an authorization for the gentleman in the audience. Okay, thank you.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. John.
According to county records, you purchased this property a year ago?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And the intent for the use of the property was for storage? or-
Concentrated wastewater processing facility. So
Okay.
it's a underground sequencing batch reactor system that basically takes porta potty waste and turns it into irrigable water. So
recycled water, essentially?
yeah, essentially. So it would be it would just go through just like your drain field on your septic tank, but probably cleaner.
How do you dispose of solids?
The county, so Environmental Services wrote us a letter that they would accept our solids.
Okay. So why are you giving this site up? The Redfish no longer wants to do that there?
We could not do it according to staff, right? It's just not a permitted use under almost any zoning we could identify.
And the BDP that's associated with this was from a prior owner?
That's correct.
If I may
Please.
clarify, but the current zoning of PIP does not allow for the wastewater facility that this gentleman was trying to permit. It would require at least IU1 zoning
Okay.
and 10 acres.
So why did they buy the property if knowing it wasn't going to be compatible with the use that you wanted?
When we initially, Morris, do you recall the name of the individual we met with previously? George Ritchie. Yes, so when we met with Mr. Ritchie.
He's not here, he's retired.
Right, when we met with Mr. Ritchie, there was talk of that if it was going to work on a site, it was this site. The PIP zoning with the environmental letter that they would take our solids would mean that we were non-off-site recoverable waste, and that if we abandoned the BDP, we would be able to do it here. We close on the property. Mr. Ritchie's no longer here. It just sort of just worked out that way.
The previous owner, did they do that? Did they have the BDP? What was their intent for the use of the land?
I never asked. The BDP was under storage, but.
Just for mini storage? Okay. Ron, you're the BDP man.
May I? Yes.
In reality, what I would like him to do is to say, go ahead and sell the property and have the new owner come to us and say, this is what I'd like to do with that property.
As the BDP stands, it's much more difficult to market the property as what's on it. So the buyer just doesn't want to spend the time.
Can I ask a question?
They'd rather just move to another site.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think the hesitancy of the board is that we hear a lot about BDPs protecting the neighbors. And what you're saying is you're taking over a piece of property that you've held for a year, maybe two, and removing that protection to the neighbors. So it's sellable for you. So I think that's the heartburn that we're having here, is because if you can sell the property, sell the property. I mean, this is we're a capitalist society. But the BDP, we have a lot of problems with BDPs coming into play and then being removed on a whim or because of a specific purpose. If that specific purpose is for long-term, we understand, and those are the mitigating circumstances. But, you know, this is, you bought it, you know, eyes wide open, and now you're asking us that you don't have any idea who's going to use it for what purpose beyond you. I have to agree with Ron to go ahead and sell the property with the BDP on it and have the next owner come in. And and make a request to the board.
I have a question for staff. Is the only BDP on this property for storage?
No, there's a
lot of
There's quite a few. If you want me to read it, I can read it to you. But basically, workshops, hobby shops, woodworking, welding, ceramics, pottery, upholstery, leather work or artwork, antiques, photography, repair and storage of golf carts, bicycles, auto, lawn, farm equipment, plant nursery, sales and goods of ceramics and crafts, furniture, golf carts, lawn and farm equipment, plants, and building materials.
Now, Jeff, you kind of started like a sentence. I see professional offices, mini warehouses, self-storage.
Yes, I'm sorry. That I was just focusing on the more intensive uses, but yes.
I mean, is there any item in this BDP that you're not happy with?
Well, I'm not happy that I can't do the use that I want. At this point, it's essentially, I'm attempting to add value to my site. So my pool of buyers is as restricted as the BDP is, essentially.
This is pretty good.
It does have some issues with some setbacks, but other than that, that's sort of where I'm at. As I've seen it, the value of the site is significantly reduced by the presence of that BDP in my conversations. The intent for us when we purchased it was always to remove the BDP because we were under the impression that PIP allowed us our intended use.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on, I had to. Mr. Bryan,
When
go
you
ahead.
said this is pretty good, you mean
The BDP.
the list of things that are
Yeah.
excluded?
That are
they're
available.
included.
That are available.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, that BDP is acceptable, but when I look at this thing and I see, isn't that a railroad that goes right across there?
We're just off to the side there. So there is a railway easement, I believe, but there's no line there.
But
Like our site is split into that little chunk at the top and then the angle
Right.
there. So it's very tough to meet setback requirements that appear in the BDP, well, the curve of the road and the easement that runs through the site.
Well, I'm not an attorney. He is over there. I'm not recommending legal advice, but it might be a possibility if you did get a potential buyer. You're a realtor. Contingent upon reducing a setback or changing the BDP.
It's not the intent of Redfish to have to do, like, we need to go and move on to find our other site and get this thing built before nobody in Central Florida will take our waste. That's the problem right now. The intent of Redfish is not to spend time making a site great for somebody else. It's to move to another site that's 10 acres, work with staff, and get us permitted.
is this property on the market currently?
It is.
And you've had buyers that have rejected?
I have not had interest.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by John, a second by Ben. All those in favor to deny, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. But now that's just a recommendation to the county commissioners.
That's just fine.
So,
Thank you for your time.
no, thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Okay,
too.
good luck.
We sure do like to take our time.
Motion adjourned. No. Meeting adjourned.
We have one more.
We got 18.
We're going to skip it.
We're gonna skip it?
I'm just kidding.
I saw Henry Lee and I was like, come on, I never get to talk.
I'm from Merritt Island too, so.
Jeff, I'm actually messing with Darcy. So we go way back.
It's been a while.
Oh, I can't play along too?
Hi, Darcy.
So this
We're here all
requested
along.
action is approval of an amendment to section 623724 4E in floodplain protection specific to North Merritt Island, north of Hall Road. The modification is going to remove an unintentional and unilateral prohibition of minor structures requiring fill in North Merritt Island, north of Hall Road. It goes back to the board's direction for the big floodplain study we did up there and the additional protections for the floodplain north of Hall Road. So we are going to strike the prohibition and then replace it with a sentence that allows, if you can't have compensatory storage for minor structures requiring fill, then you can demonstrate that you have no adverse impacts using the new flood model. But if you can't provide compensatory storage or you cannot demonstrate no adverse impacts, then you're presumed to be a flood risk off-site. So we would not allow you the minor structure, whereas right now, all minor structures requiring fill are prohibited. So this allows you to have your minor structure if you can demonstrate you're not going to be a flooding risk.
I am a professional with compensating storage.
I'm sorry, oh, that's right, you are, very much so.
Too bad I can't make a motion or we'd be done.
Well, someone else can step up.
So moved.
You want to ask the audience if there's any?
Is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? It's a good item, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve.
I think Ben already made the
No,
motion.
he was approving your motion that you did not make.
Oh, okay. A motion by John, a second by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That
Thank
passed
you, I
unanimously.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now
Move
can
to
I say
adjourn.
motion adjourned, that Darcy's done? Okay, meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.